I'm here for future generations.
Tonight, more arrests on the front line of the protest against the Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain pipeline.
The pipe has been here, and we haven't had a rupture.
When compared to rail transport, some feel a pipeline is a better option.
I read the book and it hit me like a gut punch.
And, based on a Richard Wagamese novel, Indian Horse hits movie theaters across Canada. Good evening, I'm Beverly Andrews. It was another day of action at the front gate of Kinder Morgan's tank farm in Burnaby, just outside of Vancouver. A group of artists against the Trans Mountain pipeline came to be arrested, and they were. Another protest camp nearby is getting bigger by the day. APTN's Tina House has this story.
Surrounded by RCMP, these three women are preparing to get arrested for crossing the line and defying the injunction order at the Kinder Morgan tank farm. The three women are artists, and they did not want to be identified for this story. They spent months painting these signs, which now hang from the gate.
I'm so grateful to see all these people here using their voice to voice the words of the people and the land and the animals, and for the people putting in the work to carry their medicine.
These land defenders are blocking access for a Kinder Morgan employee and his truck from leaving. After a 10-minute warning issued by police to leave came and went, the first of the three women were arrested as close to 40 supporters cheered her on.
I'm here for future generations, so my grandchildren can have an earth for their grandchildren to live on.
After being escorted away by RCMP, the second woman was then arrested.
I feel like we are really being called at this time in the world to take a stand for democracy and for future generations.
Just across the street is Camp Cloud. Every day it's growing, with more people coming. Grace Burke says she stays here full time, and today she gives us a tour.
Here we have someone 24/7 keeping an eye on the expansion of the Kinder Morgan pipeline. This is a grassroots movement, so we rely on the community to donate food and help us out. There's been lots of support.
And that support also includes people from the trades, volunteering their time and helping build more infrastructure. Despite the announcement from Kinder Morgan to suspend all non-essential work on the expansion, the people here on the front lines say that nothing has changed. The mission is still the same, and more actions will continue. Grace has her own theory about the announcement.
It's just kind of used to divert attention away from what they're doing, and every day they've still come into work, they've still come in to keep building, and they've been driving equipment into the gates, and they just kind of wanted to make it seem like they're stopping, but really they're not.
It's been just over 130 days since Camp Cloud has been set up here, and these land defenders say they aren't going anywhere until this project is stopped. Tina House, APTN National News, Burnaby.
Kinder Morgan's Trans Mountain pipeline has had its detractors. There have been ongoing protests across the country against the project, but there are many First Nations in Alberta and British Columbia who support the pipeline. In Alberta, the pipeline runs close to the Paul First Nation. They signed a financial agreement with Kinder Morgan in 2014. Paul's chief, Arthur Bird, says there is a high demand for oil, and compared to rail, pipelines are the safest way to transport it.
In 2005, we had a derailment here that spilled bunker C into the Lake Wamwin, which impacted the community. We're not sure if we still have access to use of the lake shore, like our traditional use of the lake. And the pipe has been here, and we haven't had a rupture. It's just 2 miles north from where we're standing. So we never had a rupture. So compared to the two, I think it's safer to pipe crude.
And we would like to hear what you have to say about this or any other story. Here's how to contact us. Send an email to news@aptn.ca, like our APTN National Facebook page, follow us on Twitter at APTN News, or go to our website, aptnnews.ca. The Quebec Inquiry continues its hearings in Val-d'Or this week. This morning, an elder from the Anishinaabe community of Lac-Simon testified. Daniel Rochette reports.
Elder Jeannette Tatati-Brazeau started with a prayer in her language. As a residential school survivor, she spoke of the hardship she went through.
For 8 years, I had no right to speak my language. They took away the little dress that my mom made. I put it back in the little suitcase. When I went back, there was no more communication with my parents. They didn't understand us anymore.
She referred to the suffering her parents endured and all the pressure put on them to send their kids to residential schools.
You imagine all the trauma experienced by our parents, the fear, the power of authority. Priests, government officers, accompanied by police officers also. If we wouldn't go to the residential schools, we would go to jail.
For almost 10 years now, Brazeau has been a helper in our community of Lac-Simon. She worked on a program for former residential school students and is sharing our culture and tradition with the youth.
All these things that I have done, I'm not recognized for that. I'm not recognized in the work I do, but they always ask me to be certified as a helper, to have a certificate or a diploma to be able to heal from our pain, So today I feel the injustice is still there.
The Quebec Inquiry will continue in Val-d'Or next week, where more citizen witnesses will be heard. Testimony will focus on youth protection services. Daniel Rochette, APTN National News, Montreal.
Thursday afternoon, the Quebec Inquiry heard testimony from an Algonquin man who described several unprovoked run-ins with the police. Alexis Wawati testified about an incident in Val-d'Or. He said police called him over to their car, told him to get in, and drove him to the outskirts. Wawati said they let him out once he threatened to call someone. He was not arrested, nor did they give him a ticket. When asked by a police lawyer why he didn't complain, he said he didn't think anyone would believe him. He went on to testify about another experience with police.
A bottle of alcohol, and I guess I wasn't complying for him to take it away. He tried to pull it, but I held it, and he grabbed my arm and he slammed me on the ground. I had stitches from that on my head, and I thought I had a cracked skull too, I think. Well, I don't really remember much because I think I had a concussion. And I was sent to the hospital that night.
Wednesday morning, residents of Pessamit First Nation woke to find moose carcasses hung on their community welcome sign. The Innu community is located about 600 kilometers northeast of Montreal. Tom Fenario is here to tell us more. And a warning to our viewers, we will be showing some graphic images. Hello, Tom.
Hi, Beverly.
Can you tell us exactly what's going on?
Yeah, well, this all started on Monday in Forestville, just southwest of Pessamit First Nation. A non-Indigenous Quebecois couple came across just a bloody scene of 6 dead moose, 10 actually if you include the calves, four dead calves, some of whom, maybe all of them, appear to have been cut out of their mother's stomach. Just a horrific scene. The couple in question took photos of the scene and posted on social media, which obviously created much outrage to see such senseless slaughter. Wildlife protection agents got involved, and they say that evidence points to possible involvement by Indigenous hunters. So Pessamit First Nation wakes up on Wednesday morning, two days after these photos have been posted, and now they find what is presumed to be the same moose hanging from their welcome sign just at the entrance of their community.
And so what happens next?
Well, I spoke to a council employee, a Mr. Andre Cote, and he's very, he says the council will be cooperating with wildlife protection agents, but he condemns these actions. He says it does not reflect Innu culture or Innu values. Obviously, the Innu, like most First Nations, are raised to have immense respect for the land and animals, especially when harvesting. So the whole thing is kind of a mystery. No one knows exactly who did this or why. With regards to the moose hanging over the sign, people do definitely feel like this is a statement, people pointing fingers at Indigenous folks there. There is definitely tensions in the area regarding ancestral hunting and territorial issues, so maybe this is some twisted statement, but no matter any way you cut it, obviously, doesn't matter what culture you're part of, to see such senseless slaughter, it's very disturbing for everyone there.
So how is the community in general reacting to this?
Everyone's just in shock, according to Mr. Andre Cote. That being said, there have been some good reactions. Leaders from both the Indigenous communities and non-Indigenous communities in the area are asking for calm. They want people to sort of just have cooler heads prevail, if you will, as we get to the bottom of this. The SQ, the Provincial Police of Quebec, will also be taking over the investigation with regards to the moose hanging over the sign. Yeah, and I guess that's where we're at right now.
All right. Well, thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Beverly.
Across the nation, the use of solitary confinement in prisons is being scrutinized. And in the Yukon, the Whitehorse Correctional Center is one facility that is being reviewed for the use of segregation and its connection to the mental health of inmates. Shirley McLean has this report.
Are the rules that are applied to individuals so that they end up in separate confinement fair and balanced? I think that that's a legitimate question to ask.
British Columbia lawyer David Lucadelis has been tasked by Yukon's Minister of Justice to look at the connection between solitary confinement and the effects of its use on people with mental illness at the Whitehorse Correctional Centre, where 80% of the inmate population is Indigenous.
Certainly a lot of observers have said to me that on any given day, a very high percentage of the individuals there are suffering from some sort of mental wellness challenge. And there's also, of course, a very, very high proportion that are suffering from alcoholism or other substance abuse.
He spoke at a justice conference for First Nation justice workers last week.
There's often a mental health challenge that they're facing, and that leads perhaps to behavior issues that then ultimately get them up on charges. And so one of the issues that I'm going to be looking at is the connection between mental health and the supports and services in the correctional center.
One of the areas that
He says he can't release any details yet, but says his report will ask the question, is segregation ever appropriate? And are there alternatives like using restorative justice tools?
Circles, but use of circles as a means of resolving disputes.
Lucadelis says there will be cases where the use of segregation will be needed for inmates who use extreme violence and are dangerous to others, but says measures need to be in place to better support correctional officers.
In terms of ensuring that they have the appropriate, again, culturally relevant training and awareness so that they can provide trauma-informed care and management of the facility.
The report is scheduled to be finished by May 15th, and then it will be up to the Yukon's Justice Minister to accept or reject the recommendations. Shirley McLean, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
We will get our first look at this week's new episode of APTN Investigates after the break. But first, here's tomorrow's weather outlook. Some cloud in St. John's and +4. Cloudy in Charlottetown and +7. Flurries in Happy Valley Goose Bay and +4. Snow in Inukjuak -13. Cloudy in Gaspé and +8. Some sun in Saguenay and +3. North Bay is +4 with some flurries. Rain in Peterborough and +5. Thunder Bay and Timmins is 0 and sunny. Wawa also 0 with some cloud. Churchill is sunny and -15. Norway House also sunny and -6. Barons River has some cloud and -2. Gimli Harbor sunny also -2. Sunny in Yorkton and -6. Cloud cover in North Battleford and Saskatoon, both 0. Buffalo Narrows has some cloud and +3. More cloud and 0 in Meadow Lake. To bring us up to date on the political issues surrounding the Kinder Morgan pipeline, I'm joined by Nation to Nation host Todd Lamarand. Todd, what's the latest?
Thanks, Beverly. Since that very brief press conference following an emergency cabinet meeting on Tuesday, talk about Kinder Morgan has moved behind closed doors. Finance Minister Bill Morneau and Alberta Premier Rachel Notley met in Toronto on Wednesday. Again, no details emerged about what the plan is to move forward with the pipeline. However, Morneau expressed confidence that the May 31st deadline was a reasonable one to work with. And to placate nervous Kinder Morgan shareholders, there's been talk of Alberta or the federal government buying into the project. As for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he has left the country on a 10-day foreign trip, but will travel back for a special meeting with Notley and BC Premier John Horgan on Sunday. However, last night a video was posted to Trudeau's social media. It was captioned, "I wouldn't approve major pipeline projects if I wasn't confident they could be done safely."
What we're doing with this Oceans Protection Plan, grounded in science, grounded also, as you said, in partnerships with Indigenous peoples, is world-class, is among the best that we've done in the world.
We'll have to wait until Monday to see if Alberta goes through with a threat to draft legislation to cut oil and gas shipments to BC, driving up the price at the pump. Meanwhile, the province of British Columbia is pursuing a legal reference in federal court on whether it can restrict the amount of bitumen flowing through that province. But forgotten in all this may be the Coldwater First Nation in BC. It's currently waiting for a judicial review on whether the pipeline can go through it. But regardless of what happens with all of that, the chief says they will protect the land and water.
Protecting our water. That's our major concern. Is if we have to, it'll be our standing rock, because there's no way we're going to jeopardize our drinking water, not only for today but for future generations.
And I'll have more on the Trans Mountain Pipeline on Nation to Nation right after the news. Back to you, Beverly.
Thank you, Todd. 10 years after the federal apology, former students of the notorious St. Anne's Residential School in Fort Albany, Ontario, are still fighting to have their stories told. Many survivors have accused the federal government of suppressing evidence of widespread abuse, including the use of an electric chair. Here's a preview of Reckoning at St. Anne's tomorrow night on APTN Investigates.
We learned to expect some form of assault from the caretakers. There was an electric chair that was used for fun. Later was taken to the girls' dormitory for disciplinary purposes. When it was for fun, we were placed in the chairs and we couldn't even touch the floor. And current was applied, our body was, went spastic, and everybody was laughing, the visitors were laughing. It was entertainment.
The very first year when I went in, like I didn't know anybody there. Everything was scary for me because I had never seen the nuns the way they dressed before. And all of a sudden, there's those people.
There was nowhere to go. So you kept silent and you dealt with this on your own. And you're dealing with these issues as a child. So you develop your own techniques to deal with it.
That's tomorrow on APTN Investigates. The much-anticipated film Indian Horse opens in theaters this weekend. More after the break. But first, the rest of tomorrow's weather outlook. +8 and sunny in High Level and Peace River. More sun in Red Deer and +4. Cloudy in Lethbridge and +6. Cloud and +12 in Kamloops. More cloud in Victoria at +12. Rain in Prince Rupert and +7. Cloudy in Prince George and +8. Cloudy and -6 in Old Crow. More cloud in Dawson City and +7. Partly cloudy in Norman Wells and -5. Sunny and +1 in Yellowknife. -14 with sun in Paulatuck. Colville Lake has some cloud, -10. -17 and sun in Chesterfield. Some cloud and -10 in Cambridge Bay. Cloudy in Joe Haven and -13. Sunny in Pangerton and -16. A highly acclaimed movie on the international film circuit is hitting the big screens. Indian Horse debuts in theaters across Canada on Friday. Here's Annette Francis with more.
Here we go.
The story is based on the late Ojibwe author Richard Wagamese's novel. It recounts the history of young Saul Indian Horse, where in the 1950s he suffers abuse at residential school.
They said I should tell my story.
The Lord God is your father now.
The rink became my escape, the game my survival.
Father, he's the best player on the rink.
This is your way out. Your way to a better life.
Told me many hearts beating together makes us stronger.
The film's director, Stephen Campanelli, says it's a story he had to put on screen.
I read the book and it hit me like a gut punch. It was unbelievable how shocked and angered and embarrassed I was.
Campanelli's a longtime member of Clint Eastwood's film production crew. He says when Eastwood saw the film, he was stunned and asked Campanelli how he could help share this story.
People know about this story. I said, well, if you can lend us your name for the movie, that would help, and he did.
Eastwood is now the film's executive producer. Campanelli says Indian Horse has been well received. It won 9 Audience Choice Awards at film festivals across the country.
Indigenous and non-Indigenous people hugging in the movie theater. It's been just really amazing.
Check your local movie listings for Indian Horse. It premieres in over 100 theaters. And at Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
The Gwich'in Nation is mourning the loss of Joe Linklater. The former chief was known as a bright light who brought positive change to the Vuntut Gwich'in people of Old Crow. Joe Linklater, 54, died suddenly this week in his home in Old Crow. He led the Vuntut Gwich'in for 15 years, building their self-government and economic development opportunities, which included being a major stockholder into Air North, Yukon's airline. Linklater was passionate in protecting the Gwich'in's way of life. Regional Chief says the Yukon has lost a trailblazer.
We'll always think to Joe as being a true visionary, an incredible leader, a kind person, and somebody who many of us have looked up to over the years, no question.
And that concludes your APTN National News for this Thursday. Stay tuned for Nation to Nation, airing in just a few minutes. Have a wonderful night. Please join us again tomorrow.